my old grandfather said to me, you know, that the best fruit will always come from the area that hasn't got gum trees on it, because the gum trees usually grow in slightly wetter, where the soil is slightly wetter, even if it's sort of similar, it's a bit wetter there. But that was in the early days when you know, in the winter water laid everywhere. Times have changed since then, and nowadays it's pretty hard to find water laying anywhere. We just don't get the rainfall. And I think to some degree in those days the water table underneath became totally saturated right to the surface, whereas nowadays we don't. That we're using water out of there. The whole district's using water, not only vines but all other sort of production.
Coonawarra was really attractive to me in terms of providing a good groundwater resource that gave us so much more insurance and ability to control that whole rainfall variation and temperature variation that we've seen a lot of in the last 10 or 12 years. Cabernet is very different to Shiraz. They respond differently to water. Shiraz is a glutton. If it gets lots of water, it'll use it all and push berry size up dramatically, and then it'll be screaming for more and suffering stress, even though it's more drought tolerant ultimately. Whereas Cabernet is much more conservative in its use of water. So we're learning a lot about managing the different varieties as well. And if we have a drought year, we've got the opportunity to bring this lovely underground water up and use it judiciously, very carefully, just to keep the vine functioning in the right spot, the right place. There's not many areas that have those sorts of resources available to them.
For Coonawarra, the water table is just critical for us. It's a very, very limited resource. It's hard to get at. It doesn't charge up easily. It relies on natural rainfall. The less rain we get, the less our water table gets charged up. And so we've got to look after it very carefully. One, not to use it up, and two, if we overuse it, we're overwatering our vines, and it doesn't do our grape quality any good. Over the last 10, 13 years, we've been in the wine industry has been in a serious, long consultation period with the government, with all sorts of people, trying to work out how to reallocate the water amongst everybody that wants some, being the wine industry, farmers, forestry, towns. And we're just on the verge of finishing this process now. And it's quite an historic process in that for the first time ever anywhere, forestry water use is going to be controlled. It's going to be licensed, just like we are. And that's a good thing. Our licenses are a good thing. It restricts our ability to abuse what is a finite resource.
Something that's taken an incredible amount of time, and the industry's played a key part in writing the preamble for the current water allocation plan. So the inclusion of forestry in the water allocation plan down here is certainly an Australian first and probably a world first. No other zone that I'm aware of has actually been involved in trying to include forestry into the water allocation plan. So it's been long and difficult, and we've been very lucky to have had the assistance of Treasury involved in this. There's a lot of corporates that have come into the area, but really the Treasury's continued efforts in supporting the water allocation plan and the work that's going on behind the scenes should be commended, and a lot of people aren't aware of the amount of time and effort they've put in as a company. So we're hoping that in the next short period before there's an election next year, that the water allocation will be sorted out, and we'll move from an area-based system into a volumetric system. And that should give long-term sustainability to not only the wine industry but all other industries in the zone.